Shalom. First, I must announce that we should silence our phones or devices. Oh God, you have been our refuge in every generation. Before the mountains came into being, before you brought forth the earth and the world from eternity to eternity, you are there. As for us, you turn us to tshuva, to return to repentance and say, return, you mortals. The days of our years are 70, or by reason of strength 80 years. But 1,000 years in God's sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. Teach us, therefore, to number our days that we may attain a heart of wisdom. And may your favor, O God, be upon us. Establish the work of our hands that it may long endure. Death has taken our beloved Stuart Kranzel. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God. Hear them, friends and community. Be with them. For Stuart's love that united so many in life, and which death cannot sever, for his companionship that we shared along life's path, and which continues in his memory, for the gifts of his heart and mind that brought joy and happiness, and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give thanks. In this time of grief, we listen to words of scripture that bring us a message of God's nearness and tells us of our kinship with the Creator. In light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. From Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes. L'kol zman v'et l'kol chefetz tachat hashemayim, et laledet v'et lamut, et latat v'et lakor natua, et lifrotz v'et livnot, et lichot v'et lischok. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Et levakesh ve'et la'abed, et lishmor ve'et lahashliach, et likro ve'et litkor, et lachasok ve'et ledaber. And from Psalms, in particular Psalm 15, which seems so apropos for Stu. Adonai mi yagor ba'ohalecha mi yishkon b'har kodshecha. Adonai, who may abide in your house? Who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them, or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those with reverence for God, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Ose ela lo yimut leolam. And from Psalm 121, the Hebrew of which we were singing in the hospital the night before he died. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. Do sing along with this as well. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. And the song goes on. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. Adonai yishmor tzeitecha uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam. In the book of Job, which examines the question why bad things happen to good people, Job cries out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. As an ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and there is strength in faith. With Job, we say, Adonai Natan, God has given, God gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in Stu's life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai Lakach, God, you have taken away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, to an altar of love, as we now say, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach, blessed be the name of God now and forever. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable. Adonai Tzvaot, our strength and our Redeemer. We have a number of people who've asked to share memories, to give words of recollection about Stu, beginning first and foremost with his wife Eileen.
Please do not feel sorry for me, because I am the luckiest person in this room. I have loved and was loved and by love for Stu for over 60 years. I look around to the faces of my beautiful children and grandchildren, and to everyone gathered here today. How special Stu was. Everyone loved him except for one person. His smile, his warmth, his love. On January 1st, 1962, I walked into the JCC and saw this really cute boy dancing and jumping all around and just enjoying the music. That I had just met the love of my life. Life has not always been fair to Stu, but he never gave up. His glass was always half full, not half empty. It was the one thing that he always tried to instill upon his children and his grandchildren. He always had a smile on his face and a big hug for everyone he met. 10 years ago, we celebrated our 50th anniversary in this very building. And now we are getting ready to celebrate our 60th anniversary. He was so excited. He told everyone at the hospital he had to get out of there so that he had his 60th anniversary coming up. So on June 2nd, I will lift my glass and make a toast to the love of my life and try to continue my life without him. I don't know how, but I will try. To everyone gathered here, I thank you. It pretty much says it all. Just look around at this packed sanctuary. His legacy will continue with Dottie, David, and Joel, his grandchildren, Ellie, Lauren, Jeremy, Mark, Micah, and Sam. As everyone knows, Stu had cancer and has had it since 2007. It hasn't been easy, but he never gave up. He thought he had a handle on it until COVID decided to take over. He was in and out of the hospital 3 times over the last month. At the end, he gave us all a gift. He waited until his entire family was surrounding his bed with love as he took one of his last breaths. At one point, as I was crying and leaning over him, as he struggled to breathe, he reached up and took his fingers and traced my mouth into a smile. My heart is broken. He was and always will be the love of my life.
His son Joel.
Try to do this without too much crying, can't promise. They say that Yankee Stadium was called the house that Ruth built. Well, you're all in the house that Stu built. With his bare hands, his heart, and his soul. My brother, sister, and I were all bar and bat mitzvahed here. We were married here. He built this. He built this with others, but with his heart. Stuart Kranzel goes by many names. Schnicks, as my mom called him. Dad or Daddy to David, Dottie, and myself. Zadie to his beloved grandchildren, or just Stu to everybody else. What else can we say about that guy? The most common word used for him is mensch. My pop is the true definition of the word mensch. The word's origin, according to the internet, was first used in 1856. Webster's dictionary defines mensch as a Yiddish word that describes a person of integrity and honor. But that's just too simple to call my dad a person of integrity and honor. Webster's dictionary needs to include the kindest, funniest, loving, caring, selfless human that ever walked on earth. He treated everyone that he met like family, friends, people at shul, customers in the shop, friends at the races, and the countless people on Facebook that he just sent messages to. The same way with kindness and love. Have you ever met someone in life that never had a bad word to say about anyone, never held a grudge? I have. That guy's my dad. As my mom said, his glass was never half empty, it was always half full, and he wouldn't let anyone around him have one drop less than half full. You see, that guy could find joy in everyone and everything. He fought cancer for the better part of 17 years with countless medications and chemo, double knee replacement, a new heart valve, a stent, and COVID twice. By the way, never even complained once. Rather, he was always asking how you were doing. What's new with you? That was the essence of him, always more worried about you more than himself. Mom, I'm sorry for losing the love of your life. You're Basheret. Just never forget that cute little guy that you met at a Jewish singles dance when you were only 18 years old. That chance meeting changed your life and consequently everyone's life in this room. At that particular time, God brought him to you to help the void of losing your mother. There will never be another Stuart Kranzel to you or to any of us. Although the pain is unbearable, please know that you'll never, ever be alone. You'll never be without his love. His love for you is for eternity, just like the inscription on his wedding band says. I'm sorry to my sister Dottie, his princess. The sun rose and set with my sister, according to my dad. You have his quick wit, sense of humor, and smile. You're the one that would go to the races with him and loved it. Never lose any of that. To my brother, I'm sorry. You are the most like him. You have my father's incredible work ethic, his business acumen, and love for family. I can only hope someday to be half the man that you are and that my dad was. I'm sorry to our plus ones, Beth and Hindi. They were lucky enough to have him in their lives. He was so proud and loved you both very much, like his own daughters. He welcomed you to our mishpucha immediately. To Dad's pride and joy, his 6 grandchildren, who gave him so much nachas, I am so sorry. He couldn't brag enough about each and every one of you. He had such a bond with each one of them in their own way. Ellie, Lauren, Jeremy, Mark, Micah, and Sammy, you are better off for having Zadie in your life. Live life like Zadie did, full of happiness and joy. And remember that he will always be with you for every moment of your life. And then there's me. I'm utterly heartbroken for losing Superman. He was truly Superman to me. Nothing could stop that guy, not cancer, not broken knees, not even COVID. The greatest father and friend that I could have ever asked for. I can't imagine not hearing him say, hey, JM, hey, Joe Michael, tell me what's new, what's going on, what's doing. To not hear that again, I can't imagine. We will all miss that guy, Stu Kranzel, loving husband, greatest father, incredible Zadie, loyal friend, and Mensch. Remember, live life like him. Be kind and happy to each other. And always look for the positives. Thank you.
And his grandson, Sam.
Okay, let's try to get through this. Zadie is the Yiddish term for grandfather. I like to define him, like my uncle said, as Superman. Zadie was someone whose main focus was the people around him. Zadie could be sick, hurt, or worse. The thing he would say every time is, this is nothing compared to the pain I feel when I know you're worried about me. I want to tell you a story about my Zadie, or as most of you know him, Stu. Zadie first brought me to work at the shop when I was about 11 years old. I started doing inventory and moving boxes, and slowly was given more opportunities to sell. Zadie had a work outfit when it was cold out. His work shirt, jeans, and a turtleneck. I was a young kid. I didn't prepare for the cold winters in Mechanicsburg and in the shop. Bubby said that it would be wise of me to get one of my grandfather's turtlenecks so I wouldn't be cold out there. Zadie took me upstairs to find a turtleneck, only to realize he didn't have another turtleneck except the one that was on his back. Zadie then took the turtleneck off his back and made sure I was warm throughout the day. The one thing he asked me to do, he said, "Don't tell Bubby." I'd also like to point out, we'd always go across the street for lunch or wherever we'd go, and he never once complained about being cold, even though I saw him sitting there shivering, and I felt terrible because I didn't pack enough. You may think Stu would only do this for his family. The truth is, Stu would do that for anybody. That's just who he is. My Zadie taught me how to do some home improvement, including the step I'm actually standing on today. He taught me how to think with my glass half full, as many have already said, and not half empty, and how to be a man, to make sure that the ladies at the table ordered first at many, many, many meals that we had together, to make sure to hold the door for people, and to make sure that the people I care about most are taken care of before myself. We not only lost our neighborly store owner, our friend, our Zadie, our father, our husband. We lost the most down-to-earth, honest man this earth has ever been blessed with. Zadie would not want us to be sad. He would not want us to stop living our lives, and he wanted us to keep pushing. Not just for him, but for everyone else here today. I'll try to use Zadie's strategy of thinking with my glass half full. Yes, I lost my only living grandfather, but I'm blessed not only with his teachings and love, but the memories we got to make together. Everything I do is for those who have passed on, for those who gave it their all and can't push anymore. Every day I wake up and I thank God, and I live for my Zadie. Zadie, I love you, and I'll never forget the impact you've had on your family, your friends, your community, and I will try to live by your teachings and show love and respect to all. Thank you for everything. I love you, Stuart.
And his grandson, Jeremy.
Like my other beloved family members, I couldn't even write anything down. I couldn't put on my phone, tablet, and up here, I can't believe this is here. This year marks 30 years of our business, Kranzel's Hobby Town. I see many friends, customers, old racers, people we've known for a long time, and many don't remember me when I was this tall, running around, being a menace, and some of our guys that are still with us to this day. And it's knowing my grandfather, my father, that is his proudest achievement. To see our name emblazoned on that door. To know that it's now passed down to me and my father, it's an honor. I just can't even come up with words knowing that he's gone. And like my Uncle Joel said, Sam said, this is Superman. He's not the superhero you see in the blue suit. He never complained, he never badmouthed anybody, and if you just needed a shoulder to cry on, he would listen to anybody. He didn't care who you were, what you believed in, what you were, he would be there for you to do it. Then there's never been another man like that. And there never will be. Why his spiritual home might be here, he's Saturday night. And my final goodbye to him, I held his hand and he squeezed my hand. And I knew that was probably the last time I was going to see him. And that was probably the hardest moment of my life. but probably the hardest thing is going to be, as many people in here know, besides his family, his number one love was dirt track racing, sprint cars, everything. Like that was my beloved Bobby. She wanted no parts of it. Like it's loud, it's obnoxious, but over the last few months, I've really gotten into it and just seeing the last few years, knowing his health declining, I decided it was time. He was been asking me for your, I think you'd love it. And come on, go with us. And this year on Williamsgrove's first night I did. And the smile I saw on his face when he saw me is quite possibly the happiest moment of my life. But it's the hardest thing is going to be now on is seeing every Friday night that empty seat. He might be gone, but everybody knows he will always be with us. Thank you for being the greatest Savior there was.
Call upon Eileen's cousin Roseanne's cell phone.
Your grandchildren are hard acts to follow. In 1965, I enjoyed being 16 and began dating my David, who's the love of my life. Along with David came a humongous family. Just one person in that entire extended family of endless aunts, uncles, cousins. There were so many of them. But one of them put his arm around me and said, "Hi, honey, I'm Stu, and we're the Outlaws." That warmth and sweetness cemented more than 50 years of our mutual admiration society. To Stu, I was always honey, and to me, Stu, well, he was just about the most perfect human being I've ever met. In Judaism, we believe that there are righteous people in every generation, 36 to be exact. To live righteously, we learn, is to conduct our life in an upright manner with moral standards that reflect our relationship with God. The righteous work hard to earn a living and detest social injustice. In Torah, only Noah is considered righteous because he neither cheated nor deceived his fellow man. For me, our Stu was a tzaddik, one of the 36 hidden righteous persons in our generation. Never, ever, ever did I hear a harsh word from that man. Okay, maybe a few off-color jokes or kvetches about something you did or said. But Stu always, and I mean, and you've heard this several times today, always saw the glass half full. For Stu, the sun would come out, the worst was over, better times were ahead, we would all be okay. He was the epitome of positive. His energy and his attitude kept everyone going. Even during his bleak final hours, he barely whispered, "I'll fight." He pulled the oxygen mask off his face and said, "I'll fight," because he wanted to assure you all
that he didn't want to leave you. Leaving his beloved family bereft was unthinkable to Stu. And sweet, talk about sweet. That man was so, so sweet. His entire essence glowed with sweetness. He would help anyone with boundless energy, kindness, gentleness, and entirely with humility. No task was too great or too small. You could call Stu to change a light bulb, or build a cabinet, to build a congregation with a house, a synagogue, to create a new business, and then successfully transform it years later. Nothing was beyond Stu's vision or his abilities. Stu would walk into our house, and inevitably I had something for him to fix. Days before their intended arrival, I'd say to David, "Eileen and Stu are coming, don't you dare touch that. Stu will fix it the right way," and he always did. With a smile, he always said, "What do you need, honey?" "I'm gonna desperately miss my honey. Eileen, I have a secret to tell you." I learned what marriage is all about by watching you and Stu. Your love only deepened over the years. Through every up and every down that life threw your way, you too represent for all of us what marriage is all about. Determination, partnership, adoration, and stick-to-itness. Yours is a love story for the ages. It's a Hallmark story. It really is. You adored each other, and it showed every single day. Stu's death, Eileen, has not changed that love. How amazing and how blessed you and Stu were to have experienced that love and life that you have shared together. So few couples are lucky to have that. And I really believe this, that love is eternal, and it will see you through these most difficult days. About those righteous Lamed Vovniks, the Bible says that a righteous man will be remembered forever. Indeed, every person here today, plus many who are Zooming, the Kranzel clan, will remember Stu with love. Your children and their children and their children's children will learn about the incredible, sweet, righteous man named Stu. As long as you all shall live, so shall Stu, our righteous side, live on. May his memory be for a blessing.
We have two rabbis who will be speaking today. So I invite Rabbi Chava Pell to come forward.
You're going to hear a lot of repetition, and that's a wonderful thing. Stu adored all of you completely and unconditionally. You know that. Others have spoken today in detail about his love for you. I'd like to take time to speak of his place on earth as a golden Yid, a golden Jew. Gold is that metal that is the softest and also conducts warmth and heat, the best of all metals. Stu was that golden Yid, along with being a tzaddik. He projected, exuded warmth and love to everyone. Stu was involved with this building of TBS, from the digging of the foundation to the placing of every wire and faucet and brick. He was here all night when the basement flooded and the pump worked and then didn't work again and then worked again. He was here always, partly because he and Eileen lived nearby, and partly because Stu was Stu and they knew he would say yes. It was he who was always called when there was a problem or perception of a problem at this building. His body and soul are in the cells of Beth Shalom, as his love is in the cells of his family, his friends, and the people whom he encountered only once. One of the things, precious things that Stuart had is a marvelous sense of humor. When we are involved with a religious institution, a sense of humor is critical. If we can't laugh about human foibles, religiosity, addiction to being right, and the divine sense of humor, we are closed in to the edges of insanity. Stuart knew how to laugh and move on toward the warmth and the light. Stuart even had a wonderful sense of humor about his family of origin. Eileen spoke briefly about one person who could not love him. More's the pity, but he still kept his sense of humor about his whole family. And he was himself, not in spite of, but perhaps because of, his choice of knowing where a soul should go and how a soul should be on earth. Thank you, Stu. Let us all laugh and let us all continue the laughter here and at home. You began it, we're not going to forget. I want to bring this family love from Rabbi Jack Paskoff of Congregation Shari Shemayim in Lancaster. He especially said to say how much he enjoyed the fact that the two of you were on that wonderful trip to Israel, which I know was such a wonderful blessing for you two, and how sweet you were, and how the essence of Stu will last in that sweetness forever. It's your sweetness, Stu, that I want to laud at this painful time. It is painful, it is difficult, because we miss that touch, that loving warmth, that smile, that hug. The spiritual teachers with whom I'm studying now say there is no separation of body, mind, and spirit, which echoes 4,000 years of Jewish wisdom. The unique combination of human qualities that allow for connection, real connection, are kindness, honesty, wisdom, listening, and compassion. Kindness, honesty, wisdom, listening, and compassion. You had them all in abundance. There are very few people in whom one can truly see their soul. Their true selves that the divine created and breathed into us. They allow it to be seen. Stuart's soul and being was those essences, those attributes: kindness, honesty, sweetness, listening, and compassion. Be those yourselves in honor of Stu. Kindness, honesty, sweetness, listening, and compassion. They were Stu, and Stu is them. For all of us who can be plagued by cynicism and despair or negative thinking, let's keep asking Stu for help, which you know even now he will freely give. Stuart Kranzel, help us be kindness, sweetness, listening, and compassion, which you were, Stuart, which you are. Let us embody that love. Amen.
We have heard so many poignant pieces today. I want to try to tie these up into something of a chronology to lay out Stu's story a little bit, but asking first, of course, what is a mensch? If you do not know that word, it means you may not be able to follow everyone's comments here today. Mensch, a warm, decent, upstanding, honest, compassionate, honorable person who can always be depended upon to do the right thing. 30 years ago, there was some other communities in the society that had something they called a WWJD campaign. Amevin Yavin, as they say, those who understand will understand. The reform movement's response was to create an educational campaign, WWMD. What would a mensch do? What would a warm, decent, upstanding, honest, and honorable person do? A person who can always be depended upon to do the right thing. And judging from the comments of so many people today and that I've heard since the news of Stu's death was announced, that campaign might have just as easily been named, What Would Stu Do? What would Stu do? He was generous, giving, and forgiving. As many of you know, the holiday of Shavuot is coming up starting tomorrow night. Shavuot is called Zman Matan Toratenu, the time of the giving of our Torah in the events of Mount Sinai. Those of you who know the story know that things don't work out so well there at first. There's this golden calf that makes an appearance, leading to lots of anger and ill feeling. But in the end, Torah is given again. Moses goes up with a second set of tablets, and this time Torah is given as an act of true forgiveness. Torah itself is built upon forgiveness, and so was much of Stu's life and being. That and compassion and love and concern for the well-being of others around him. That last night, I saw him 12 hours before he died. He thanked me for coming. Just like, as his children noted, he made sure to try to comfort his family for what was happening. His brother Jack told me that Stu would never have been happy languishing in bed for the rest of his life. Though we all hoped against hope that Stu would still be able to overcome this. His mind was clear, he was lucid, but he had no breath and he had no strength. And Stu himself said at that moment, being low on energy just was not him. He was always active, always a hard worker, having worked from age 8 to 80, as David says. Stuart Kranzel was born in Philadelphia on November 4th, 1942, to Morris, also known as Metz, and Lillian Kranzel. He was the middle son, born after his older brother Jack and before his younger brother Burton. Their father Metz was a merchant and an auctioneer who would ride through parts of rural Pennsylvania auctioning off wares, sort of a mid-20th century version of a long-standing American Jewish example of the traveling peddler who would eventually then find a town in which to settle down and build a store. And that is what their father Metz did, eventually building a store and a shopping center in Lower Allen Township. Stu began his working life at the age of 8, helping his father with the auctions. He would later say, "That's where I got my business education." The family moved to Lower Allen Township when Stu was 11. Metz started a store out of the garage of their house, where the Summit Restaurant is now on Gettysburg Road in Lower Allen Township. Metz then expanded the store in stages and built the shopping center around it into Metz and Sons Hardware and the Lower Allen Shopping Center, right there at the corner of Gettysburg Road and Kranzel Drive in Lower Allen. Stu then spent his teen years growing up in Lower Allen on the West Shore and attending the newly built Cedar Cliff High School, from which he graduated in 1960 as part of the first graduating class. He was one of only 2 Jewish students in that Cedar Cliff class of 1960. Stu found that growing up Jewish on the West Shore in the 1950s was not easy. He often recalled experiencing anti-Semitism on the West Shore for being Jewish and exclusion in the Jewish community for living on the West Shore. No doubt such experiences would fuel his passion later in throwing himself into the task of maintaining Temple Beth Shalom as an organized Jewish presence on the West Shore. But that's getting ahead of the story. After graduating high school in 1960, Stu continued to work in the family business, the store his father started. A year and a half later, at a New Year's dance at the Harrisburg Jewish Community Center, on January 1st, 1962, in what became a major turning point in his life, he met Eileen, who had grown up in Lancaster. They met on January 1st, 1962. They became engaged in December 1962. They were married in June of 1963, at the age of 19. June 2nd, 1962, 60 years ago next Friday. Stu and Eileen moved into a 2-bedroom house in Camp Hill, which being in Stu's hands turned into a 3-bedroom house with 2 baths and a family room. While they lived there, Dottie was born to them in 1964. David was born in 1968, followed by Joel in 1971. In 1967, at the age of 25, Stu began working outside of the family business. He sold insurance and then started work installing windows and storm doors, patio doors, and awnings. He became a salesman for Keystone Building Products and took on sales routes that no one thought had much potential. And he worked those routes and they became one of the most profitable routes in the system. Never let anyone outwork you, he would tell his kids. Eventually, he became part owner of the company. In 1972, with a growing family, Eileen and Stu moved into a larger house, a 4-bedroom house with 1.5 baths around the corner here, which now, with Stu always building, has 5 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, along with an added Florida room, a workshop, a large enclosed insulated porch, and an outdoor shed. And Stu, at about this time, had another life-changing moment in a talk with his father that he probably would have forgotten about long ago, except for what his father did next. Stu had a discussion with his father, Metz, about whether there were any Jews on the West Shore that might be interested in seeing a synagogue established on the West Shore. Unbeknownst to Stu, his father then proceeded to put an ad in the paper asking for any Jews who might be interested in seeing a synagogue created on the West Shore to contact him. The response is what led to what was first referred to as West Shore Jewish Community, now Temple Beth Shalom. At first, the synagogue met at Christ Presbyterian Church in the Allendale development area of Camp Hill, but Metz and Lillian owned a piece of land on Allendale Road in Mechanicsburg. Soon, Stu's building towns were focused on the temple. And for as long as he had energy, that focus never left. In addition, Stu utilized those building talents to create a home improvement business. In 1990, when I first came here, I remember Stu having a big box truck. That was a key part of his home improvement business. And then in 1993, Stu went into the hobby business with his son, David, until now, even 20 years later. So Stu's working life started off working with his father and grew into a working life with his son, David, and his grandson, Jeremy. In fact, Stu's family life, his home life, his working life, his house, the temple around the corner, all of these things merged into overlapping efforts. Each of his children were married in this sanctuary that he helped to build and continue to maintain. I know because I was there. David and Beth chose to be married here on the same day of the year that Stu and Eileen were married, June 2nd, 1991. Beth, in many ways, felt like she was early on adopted into the entire family, in no small measure because of Stu's kindness and embracing heart. Beth described him as a father figure for so many, not only in the way he cared about others and conveyed his love, but also in the way he conveyed guidance without making people feel rebuked. Let me say this about that, he might say, and invite you to sit down and say something for you to think about without being mean or demeaning. He could make it a teachable moment. I experienced that personally when not long ago we installed an alarm in this building. The first time I went to set the alarm, I actually unknowingly set off the alarm. I set it off, I went out the door, drove away, and left it for Stu and the police to sort out what happened. A few days later, Stu very kindly called me and without any rancor told me that the alarm had been set off, told me what happened, and Oh yeah, by the way, you were the one who did it. And so we will just have to make sure you understand the system a bit better going forward. He could be very forgiving. Life is short. There's no point in spending it holding grudges. Stu was a presence in his neighborhood. Just as he worked on his own house, he would also help out when something needed to be done in someone else's house. And it needs to be said that even though he worked a lot throughout his life and he taught the value of hard work, Stu was not all about work. He was fun-loving, funny, and had hobbies. We've heard he loved car racing and would spend time during the season at the track. He loved boating. Eileen bought him his first pontoon boat for their 25th anniversary, upon which they and the Baumgartners, Smiths, Seldos, and Schusters would go out on the river together. And as far as I know, only once almost capsized it. He loved going with the family to Rehoboth Beach each year for 21 years. He loved gardening and bowling and being a grandparent. He was someone his family felt they could depend upon for love, support, advice, and an understanding voice of guidance and correction when necessary. Stu would emphasize that when given a choice, we've heard this, when given a choice between seeing the cup half empty or half full, life was always more pleasant and productive if you could see the cup half full. So many people in the past few days have conveyed how much Stu cared and showed concern for others. The hospital staff, the nurses, and the cleaning staff commented to the family how kind and compassionate he was to them. Even his last night, when the family was gathered around him, his family felt he was trying to comfort them. Just as it seemed his family's presence gathered around him that night seemed like such a comfort to him. His wife, all his children and children-in-law, all 6 grandchildren were gathered together. Eileen, Dottie, Joel and David, Indy and Beth, Ellie, Lauren, Jeremy, Mark, Micah, and Sam. Every one of those grandkids now grown into adulthood and doing wonderful things in the world. Each of them in their own way carrying Stu's legacy in the present and into the future. I asked, beginning in my comments, what is a mensch? A warm, decent, caring, upstanding, honest, and honorable human being. A mensch, I think it's clear we can say, looks a lot like Stu. And in the next couple days, tonight and tomorrow, those who gather for Shiva will have opportunities to share memories at these gatherings. Wednesday and Thursday, ending with Shavuot, but then continuing in opportunities to gather during Shavuot for the festival as well. May his family find comfort in having known such a mensch and in knowing that the impression of Stu continues to live on within each of you through your memory of him. May Stu's memory be forever a blessing and an inspiration to us all.
I want to say something about
Marilyn.
I have known Stu through quarters of my life, and being a part of the Kranzel family. When I was in my late teens, I would set Stu up on blind dates. Yeah. I would set Stu up with blind dates with my Jewish girlfriends, but nothing worked out. Thank heaven. Stu started dating Eileen and ended up getting married. I couldn't ask for a better sister. After legally being out of the Kranzel family, Stu and Eileen took me back into their family, and Stu said, "You'll always be my sister." And John and I were involved in a lot of functions with them. I have never heard anyone ever say anything negative against Stu when his name was mentioned. He was a wonderful husband, father, and grandfather, and loved them dearly. Stu was a hard worker. Stu was kind, caring, and compassionate. I was called sis by him, and I called Stu bro. You will be missed by many. I will love you forever. Rest in peace, bro.
Please rise for the memorial prayer. El Kale Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamtzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashkinah, Im Kadoshim Utorim, Kezohar Harakia Hamazhirim, Et Nishmat Tzadik Chaim Ben Meir Shehalach Leholamo Ba'al Harachamim Yasirehu B'setek Knafav Leolami Vitzror Chaim Et Nishmato Adonai Unachalato Ve'anuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo Ve'nomar Amen. God, full of compassion, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Stuart Kranzel, who has entered eternity. God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. Adonai is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. I call for the pallbearers to come forward.